Hi everyone, today I have a greeting card project for you. I made this greeting card that's perfect for the holidays. Oh, here it's backwards right here. And I filmed a little tutorial to show you how I made it. So let's get started, shall we? So the first thing I've done, and I've done this ahead of time, is I've gone into my cupboards and I found a bowl that is just about the right size for the ornament size that I want to create, because it's going to go about right here. So you want to get yourself a bowl that has kind of a clean rim like this, that's nice and smooth. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm taking a large brush like this one. This is a size 10, and then I'm just dipping it in my color. So I've chosen this kind of deep blue color, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint the very top of my bowl with the blue color, like so. So I'm making sure to go all around and painting the color. It's dripping a little bit here, but that's okay. All right, that should do it. So now, while everything is still wet, I want to go ahead and pop it in place. I'm gonna go about here and press down and take it out. And there you go, you have your shape. And now you wanna work a little bit quickly. So I wanna make sure that I don't have too much color on my brush, but I'm just gonna go around the general shape that I've just created, just to make sure that that line, that outside line, doesn't dry. And then I'm just kind of carrying the color into the center of my now shaped ornament. And I'm gonna leave a little bit of white, kind of where the light would most hit my ornament. And I'm just kind of going around and creating that shape. And it doesn't have to be like a perfect circle, but it should be fairly round thanks to the bowl. And there we go. And I think what I might do is just drop, and this is the same method, like if you wanted to paint bubbles, for example, you could use that same method and it works really well. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just pop a little bit more color right here, because I'm feeling like I want it to be a little bit darker. There we go. And I'm gonna leave those kind of white spots in the center. And I think what I might now do is make sure I have almost no color left on my brush. I'm going to take a paper towel and just kind of dab, and then I'm going to remove a little bit of color just from the center here, because I'm feeling that it needs just a little bit of lightness right here. And that's it. You have kind of your basic ornament shape. And so now what I'm going to do is let that dry, and then I'll meet you right back here and we can start working on the branches. Okay, so now my ornament is dry, and I'm going to start by creating the little piece of hardware that's right at the top of my ornament here, and then we'll attach it to a branch, but I want to just get it in there first. So I'm making kind of a line here and a line here, kind of filling out those lines. Let's see, I'm trying to remember the shape. Yeah, there we go. Like this, a bit of a dip here. You can use whatever color you want, but I think I'm going to use some lettering on this card, as you might have seen at the beginning. And so I think the black, because the letters will be black, and I think this might kind of help those two elements go together. And then I'm going to go ahead and create the top part of my ornament hardware, for lack of a better word. Imagine it kind of like so. There we are. And then I'll put the top of my branch right here. So I think that looks about right. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and let that dry, and then we can work on our leaves. Okay, so I've gone ahead and mixed a little bit of green to make the beginning of my pine needles. And so what I'm going to start by doing is kind of a first layer of them. So I'm just going to start by imagining where I want those pine needles to go. And I want them to kind of surround my ornament here in kind of a natural kind of way, like you might imagine, you know, like a Christmas tree looking. So let's see, I'm going to go maybe one here, maybe one like right here, one here, and you can always add more after. So if you're not exactly sure where you want these things to stand, just start with a little bit less, and then you can kind of work your way. You can add more later. So I'm doing the kind of main branches first. You can take your time with this. Sometimes it's a little hard to imagine it. And then what I'm going to go ahead and is do kind of a first layer of what those branches might look like. So think, you know, little tiny brush strokes like so, little tiny lines, and try to make some of them a little bit thicker, some of them a little bit thinner, not perfectly geometric, because you do want it to look kind of natural, but try not to use too dark of a color, because we're going to go back in afterwards and do a second layer over top. So if you go too dark at first, it does make it kind of hard to do that. So I'm going to go like so here. It's kind of nice to have branches kind of surround your ornament. And try to make sure you're attaching all of those ornaments to, not ornaments, sorry, all of those little kind of pine needles to their main branch, so they're not just floating in the air. Okay, so I'm gonna go here, and then I'll take a look at what it looks like. I think that's looking pretty good. Put a few more here. And it's nice if you can get some of them kind of interacting with each other, like if you see here and a little bit here, so that they're not just kind of lone branches. And I should make one branch right here, which would be the branch where my actual ornament would be hung. So right here, let's say. And I'll do the little branches on this one here. There we go. Maybe a couple here. Sorry, I'm getting distracted because there's some sunshine peeking through outside. There we go. Let's see. I think I might want to do one last kind of branch here. Like so. And a couple smaller branches. Little stray branches kind of here, and I think I'll leave it at that for now. I think that looks pretty good. And now I'm going to let that dry a little bit, and then I'm going to go in with a darker layer over top. Okay, I am back. I'm going to go back in with that same green color that I've been using and make it quite a bit darker, which means I'm using essentially less water. So the paint's a little bit thicker and darker, and I can kind of paint it over top. So let's see, I'm gonna go here and kind of add in little bristles over top, and doing it in two stages like this, kind of the lighter iteration and then the thicker iteration over top, I think really helps to create that sense of fullness that you want for branches. I like to use that same method for trees, for Christmas trees. Actually, I have a Christmas tree tutorial. I can put the link down below if you're interested in checking it out. And you'll see I use kind of the same method to make a Christmas tree, and it's this kind of layering method. It's pretty easy to do, just takes a little bit of extra time. And I find that it really helps create a sense of kind of fullness. And now that I see this, I think I need a kind of a stray branch here. It's making it seem like it needs it. What do we think? Yeah, I think that looks nice. And it's okay, like as you see, not all of them need to be layered, but just getting the right shape sometimes takes a little bit of trial and error. So I'm gonna go ahead here and finish all of the branches. And it's nice seeing the first layer underneath. You really get that kind of play on tones. And also, if you're not really that comfortable with kind of mixing colors, once you have a shade that you like, this is a good way to get several different shades out of your one watercolor color. Just using more water at first for a lighter shade, and then less water after that. You'll kind of get several shades out of the same color. So I think that looks pretty good. And I'm going to move on now and do the same thing over top. And so I'm making some of them straight, kind of on top of that first layer, and then I'm adding extra little ones here and there as well. And I find that that's how you get kind of the best effect. And I actually like, it's nice to have taped down my piece of paper for this, because hopefully, and you'll see when I do it, but hopefully when I take off the tape, I'll get that nice clean edge, and it will kind of help bring it all together. And you might want to go over some of the stems, but maybe not all of them, maybe just some of them, to get the best effect. Okay, so here we go. Almost done. And do take your time, obviously, when you're doing this. I'm doing this maybe a little bit quickly, just to show you the method, but you can obviously take as long as you'd like with this. Okay, and you could use more than one color. I was talking about how to get various shades out of just one kind of watercolor color, but of course, if you'd like, you can use different shades. So I think that's looking pretty good. So now I'm gonna let this dry again and I'll be right back with you. Okay, so what I've done now is I've actually used a little bit of a different shade of green, which you'll see me mixing here, and I've kind of mixed it with my original color, the darker color I've used for the needles. And what I'm gonna do is really water that down like so, and I'm just gonna go ahead and add a little bit of color, kind of peeking through behind those leaves, those needles, just like so. And I kind of like the effect. I'm kind of following the general shape. I'm thinking of this almost like you would a shadow. I'm doing kind of a light iteration of color, like so, all around. You don't have to do it everywhere, but just a little bit of that, kind of following the general shape, I think will look nice once I'm done. Okay, that looks pretty good. Just a little bit here. Yeah, it's pretty subtle, but I think it adds a little bit of finesse to it. Okay, so that's done. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this set here. It's a cool little stamp alphabet set that I really like to use. It has all the letters of the alphabet like so. And I'm just going to go ahead and stamp a little message to finish my greeting card. So I'm using this ink pad, which I really like. It's called the all-purpose ink pad. I think, yeah, an all-purpose ink pad. And it's just a very reliable ink. It works really well on paper, and it also works on fabric. So let's see, I think I'm just gonna write Mary for this card. So I'm gonna go ahead and just dab, dab, dab. And the one thing I will say is that sometimes when you use stamps, you get a little bit of color on the, of ink on the edge, and I don't always like that look. So often what I'll do is I'll kind of go ahead and take that ink off of the side, so I'm really just getting the letter as opposed to getting that little edge. And sometimes the edge is nice, it looks kind of rustic, but in this particular instance I don't really want it. So I'm going to go ahead here and press. There you go, that's an M. And I think I often say this, I think I might have mentioned in other videos that I'm a food stylist as well. And when you do go ahead and bake, one of the cardinal rules is to not show whatever you're baking or cooking that you're scared. And just telling yourself that you're not scared oftentimes makes a lot of the tasks easier. It's kind of like a mindset thing. And I think, so for example, when I'm making pie, you know, I'll tell myself, not afraid of the pie, which obviously you're not actually afraid of the pie, but telling yourself that you can do it will help you kind of transfer, for example, pie dough to a pie dish, or, you know, if you're making a pattern on top of a pie, kind of getting those pieces of dough on top. And so doing the same when you're stamping these cards, as in telling yourself that it's not going to smudge, sometimes does the trick. Not all the time, but sometimes it does, to just kind of go for it. Okay, so now I'm going to add in my R. So I'm just tapping that in. Oh, and that one definitely got on the edge here, so let me take that off. There we go. I'm gonna add in the R, and it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. I think a little bit of whimsy is okay. This is handmade after all, so looking handmade is all good. But I do think taking off the edge kind of helps, especially when you're making letters kind of horizontally like this. There we go, R, and let's go for a Y. Do the same thing here. These are kind of tricky actually, not to get the ink on the side. It's not the easiest. So there we go. And there we go. And then I think the last thing I'll do is I'm sensing that I want to add just a very slight kind of shadow on my ornament. I actually like to call them, and tell me in the comments, I actually like to call them baubles. Do you ever call them baubles? I think that might be the British term. And somehow saying the word bauble kind of brings in a little bit of festive to it. So tell me in the comments if you say bauble or ornament. Okay, so I'm adding just a tiny bit of color here. I've added actually a bit of ochre to my blue, and I'm just gonna do like a very slight run through here of color. Really not that much. Around here, like maybe where the shadow hits, where that branch is, and maybe around here as well. And then I'm gonna dab into my water. Actually, yeah, and then take a little bit of that off and just kind of blend it through here, like so that I don't get a harsh line. And there we go. And there we go. And I think since the rest of my card is dry, that I can go ahead now and take off the tape. That's always kind of the aha moment for me. So let's see. I'm gonna slowly peel this off. This is washi tape, and usually it's pretty forgiving. It doesn't usually tend to tear my paper. So on top of being kind of pretty to use, it's also quite functional, which I like. So here we go. Didn't really do its job in terms of keeping my card straight, but that's okay. When I'm done, I'm gonna weigh it down. Once it's really completely dry and the lettering is dry, I'll weigh it down, and then I'll be able to get a perfectly straight card. And there we go. This is our card, a simple nestled ornament for the merry message.